Hello, this is Cheryl Marlene, and welcome to Spiritual Deep Dive. In this episode, we hear from the Akashic Records during our weekly Akashic Record Insights workshop. The participant has brought up a really interesting question. Do you get people who don't have any souls?
So you talked the last time about souls and walk-ins.
Yes.
That when a child is conceived, the soul is not necessarily part of that.
Yes.
And they might sort of join in there then or later, and halfway through their life, they might decide, I don't want this anymore. So do you have people who don't have any souls?
Oh, they just want to have fun today. First of all, it kind of starts with the answer. Well, it depends on how you want to define soul.
Oh gosh.
I
already hurt. My head hurts.
Oh my God, this cracks me up. But really, because the fundamental idea of soul is that motion within the transcendent that has identified itself as, let's say, individual, right? And that it's aware that there's a whole bunch of other individuals. So in order to come to Earth, there has to be at least that much intention in order for the body to be created, at least initially to be created. So that means that you can end up with, let's say, like a human being that doesn't feel like there's much of that oomph in there, right? That soul intention.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that can be a soul's choice. It also can be almost like a misalignment between the physical and the spiritual the physical and spiritual aspects of a person. And I'm trying to get more information about that. So
three co-creative forces: physical, spiritual, and universal life force.
Yes.
Can you just leave out the spiritual?
Both intentionally and unintentionally, you can limit how much spiritual is there, just as you can limit how much you may be connected physically. And all of that can be consciously chosen and unconsciously limited. And it can also be like what happens when the physical and the spiritual come in this moment within universal life force. So it's not that universal life force like consciously limits, but it's about how that interaction happens. It's essentially the, why do bad things happen to good people issue, right? It's that. So that means that from our perspectives, we can be aware of human beings that seem to like be completely disconnected physically and or completely disconnected spiritually, like, almost to the sense that they, like there's no soul there. Mm-hmm. And why that is going to be different from person to person. So your question, is it possible for there to be no soul? Another way to answer that is that it's possible for the process that created that human being to only like fill the crucible with, just a spark of the soul as opposed to all of it for a whole variety of different reasons. So that it could feel to people that there's no soul there. Just as it's also possible for there to be completely a soul there, and in the choice of the human being, either consciously or unconsciously, they experience like what would probably be best to say a complete disconnection from who they are spiritually. Right? Because all of this is about, because every human being is an interaction of physical and spiritual with the animating force of universal life force, right? And so that's always going to happen. That's how you get a human being. But every human being has both conscious and unconscious choices about how they live that, how they experience it, and will essentially, essentially like say someone who's like we would call like a psychopath, for a variety of different reasons. It's because they have very limited connected awareness to their spiritual side, which can be a choice, like a conscious soul choice. It can also be because of the chemicals in their physical body or the lack of chemicals in their physical body. It can be because of their history of like how they got born, or, something that happened to them when they were 3. I mean, in other words, what limits that awareness of who you are physically and who you are spiritually happens for a whole variety of reasons. Even though from the outside perspective, it's like there's no soul there. I mean, there's very likely a soul there, but the choice somewhere along the way was to not experience it, to not feel that connection. Does that answer your question?
I'll just take my brain out now and leave it to the side.
Okay.
So,
All right.
yeah, the rest.
All right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Terry, you got a question?
No, not really. I've been listening. I've been eating and things like that. I know you guys watch me eat. But so probably maybe they were born with an intact soul and they just kept ejecting parts of it because of different parts of their life, possibly. So
Yeah, I mean,
such as a certain political character walking around with a lot of soul bubbles attached to them, a whole bunch of balloons all around them from the various places in their life where different things got ejected.
Yep. Yes. See, you can have, yes, that's absolutely one possibility, right?
From
like
their heart from different places.
Yeah. And part of it, I mean, and so, yeah, so it's, I mean, there's, like what they would say is that there's a lot of, there's a lot of good main reasons. And then there's a million, like reasons for each person. Cause so it's all, in a lot of ways, it's all contextual. And it's ends up, even though we would like it to be, it ends up not being all that transactional. Right? In other words, not everything happens because of cause and effect. Let's say it that way. And that ends up being difficult for us because we tend to explain everything through cause and effect.
Thank you for listening. This has been an episode of Spiritual Deep Dive. For more, visit spiritualdeepdive.com or my website, cherylmarlene.com. To join our weekly Akashic Record Insights workshop, go to akashicrecordinsights.com.